Herons and egrets, kingfishers, ducks, cormorants, grebes, great and little bittern, and a lot of migration birds over the year call this lake behind me their home. Some for only a few days, some for months, and some for a lifetime. Now it is November. The days are shorter and the temperatures are dropping. Every morning there is wonderful fog around until the sun bursts through, creating breathtaking settings where water, light, and of course wildlife interact together. And with this endless variety, from different species to ever-changing weather and light, each shot offers something new and unique to capture. It doesn't take much to have this experience, but it takes a lot to capture it in such a way that the magic of these moments reaches the viewer through a picture. Above all, it takes patience, but it also requires a lot of knowledge about nature, approaches, and of course your camera. And at this lake and a few other locations, we'll dive deep into all the aspects of waterbird photography over the next months so that we can achieve our dream photos together. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned photographer looking to improve your technique, there is something here for everyone. Before we start, here's a quick breakdown of what you can expect in this series. In this episode, we'll start with some very basic questions to clarify which type of water is the best for your type of photography to maximize your results from the beginning. When we finish the basics today, we are going into special tutorials and techniques, such as building Kingfisher setups to get shots like this one, run and gun sessions, height photography, a lot of challenges, gear shootouts, setting discussions, and also live sessions at the water of your choice to see if all that we've learned was worth it. And I can guarantee one thing up front, and that's also the beauty of waterbird photography when you're prepared: I never leave the water's edge without great images. So let's start with the basics. You need water. When you only have one choice, work with what you have and get the best out of it with the following tips of this series. Now, when you have the opportunity to decide between different waters, there is a few things to consider in order to create sessions the most effective. Let's just briefly clarify what the pros and cons of different water types are and for which types of photographer they are the right choice. We are going to start with the lake. And what makes the lake a lake is that they have still or slow-moving water, which creates clear conditions for spotting birds. Speaking of birds, lakes attract a big range of bird species, from ducks and geese to herons and grebes and kingfishers and so on, providing diverse photo opportunities for us. There is also diverse opportunities when it comes to the types of shots you can achieve at the lake, as lakes typically offer expansive views allowing for shots of birds in flight or capturing scenic landscapes with birds in the shot, for example. Also, a big advantage of the lake is that the clear water surface can allow for photography with reflections. Now, the downside of natural lakes is that they may have limited or difficult shoreline access, making it challenging to get close to certain birds. The same goes for the lake where I am standing. There is only 2 to 3 spots where you can photograph properly. These spots make only about 3 to 5% from the whole shoreline, but these spots are great. You'll see why I picked that lake later in detail. Another downside is that popular lake spots can get crowded, especially during weekends or peak seasons, making it harder to find quiet and undisturbed areas. And that's one of the main decisions for yourself. Are you okay with that? Or is it upsetting you so much that you can't properly concentrate on your photography? Remember that there always is a price that you have to pay in order to achieve something. And crowded lakes oftentimes offer unique photo opportunities as the animals are used to the people. Personally, I don't like too much people around, but I am willing to pay the price to get the shots that I couldn't get somewhere else. For those that don't care, the next water type will be even better. City park lakes often attract birds accustomed to people, making them easier to photograph without disturbing them, and in these environments the animal might even interact with people or urban elements, allowing for very unique shots that show nature coexisting with human-related urbanity. Also, the accessibility is much better as there are paved paths, open spaces and benches that offer easier access and more comfort for your sessions. Now, the downside, of course, is that there is even more visitors, a lot of noise and movement around you. And compared to natural lakes, city park lakes are often smaller and they may attract a limited range of species. But those can be photographed very good. So when you're fine with the city life around and you want to get guaranteed close-up bird shots at the water, these park lakes are definitely for you. Now, creeks offer a smaller, more intimate environment where you can photograph birds up close in natural surroundings, And birds often hunt and feed along creeks, so there are many chances to capture dynamic behaviors like fishing or feeding. Kingfishers and heron, for example, have many opportunities at the lake. They can fly across the lake, along the shoreline, or to islands like the one behind me. At the creek, they can only fly or hunt up and down, forcing them to, at some point, get right in front of your lens. Now, creeks often have rocks, overhanging trees and natural vegetation, adding a lot of visual interest to your shots. There also might be totally different species. When I think of creeks near my home, there are so much wagtails, for example, that I never see at lakes or ponds. My creek is also home to the dipper, which is a crazy bird that I absolutely admire. They only live at clear creeks, so you would never find them at a lake like this. At this point, I'm thinking about doing a video about the dipper at my creek. That would be very cool. I think I will do that. If you want to see how I get along photographing the dipper, as it's kind of hard, or you're interested in dipper photography, you should definitely subscribe to not miss that. It will come in this winter. I'm confident. I will do that. I still have that long exposure with the flowing water and the dipper standing on a rock or something in mind, and let's see what we can get in a few weeks. The cons of small creeks are obviously the limiting viewing angles, as the narrow nature of creeks limits you where you can set up for good angles without disturbing the birds. Also, creeks are often shaded by trees, which can make lighting tricky and require more careful settings to avoid dark or noisy photos. So in general, the creek can give you extraordinarily good opportunities, but it's not a beginner-friendly environment. And there's another downside. The strong current and the fast-flowing wild water can create extreme reflections and uncontrollable highlights in your shots. But that's just things that you have to deal with, and you can also adapt creatively, as I just said, with longer exposures, for example. You can of course go for the creek as a beginner, but to learn with your gear and about techniques, it's not the best environment. Rivers are my favorite type of water. I just love big flowing waters. It just calms me so much somehow. I don't know, I just love it. And they can have so many faces. There is deep and shallow areas, fast flowing and almost standing areas and old river arms. There can be sandbanks and a lot of changing vegetation, attracting a lot of different species and different behaviors. And the birds along rivers are also very active most of the time, allowing you to capture shots of birds in flight, diving or feeding. And as rivers flow through different landscapes, they provide unique backgrounds and compositions for your shots. The large variety of birds also helps in getting shots. A downside of the river is that the riverbanks can be uneven or difficult to access, which can make positioning and stability very hard, especially with long lenses. And in times of flooding, they are completely inaccessible. But in times of flooding, move to the lakes. All the birds that can't hunt in the river due to extreme current then move to the lakes or ponds nearby. I'd say that the river is great for photographers that want to run and gun and cover some distance actively looking for subjects to photograph. But hotspots, just as old and quiet sidearms, always offer extraordinarily good opportunities for stationary hide sessions. Now, coastal areas are home to the widest variety of birds, including shorebirds, gulls, the osprey, other eagles, maybe even the pelican, depending on where you live, and a lot of other migratory species. When you live at the coast, congratulations. I don't, and I absolutely love the shores. The scenery with waves, rocks, sand dunes can add so much drama and depth to the photos, making it visually absolutely stunning. And as birds at the coast are often actively hunting or scavenging, we have a lot of chances to capture interesting behaviors. The coast also is a great place for vacation with the family, so you can combine that with photography. The downside of coastal areas are that it's often windy. Shifting tides can make it challenging to set up your shots or keep gear steady, and salt water and sand can damage your camera equipment, requiring extra precautions and frequent cleaning. When the next year's migration begins and the wading birds such as the spoonbill, which is one of my favorite birds, maybe my favorite bird, it just looks like a dinosaur. When they come back from their winter quarters, I will go to the coast for a week or two and put the focus fully on shorebirds and break it down step by step to get shots just as good as those are, or even better. We'll see. Now, before we get into techniques in the next episode, I want to give a few general tips up front so you can already do some preparations before the series photography part begins. Spend some time observing the waters that you want to photograph at. See if there is birds. Which birds are there and what are they doing? This will help you understand where they like to land, feed and interact. Knowing your water and the animal's patterns gives you much better chances of capturing interesting shots. Also see if there are spots with good access to the water's edge and if there is opportunities for photography at those spots. And as nature is ever changing, a good waterbird photographer must embrace that unpredictability. Conditions like light, weather and bird behavior can change quickly, and staying adaptable and cautious helps in effectively responding to these shifts, making the most of each moment. So observe things like incoming bad weather or the directions of light. Where does bad weather normally come from? Where does the light come from? Where's the sun in the morning and where does the sun go down? And do birds behave differently during these times of the day or because of weather changes? By asking these questions and learning, you will be prepared for the best situations. And lastly, while you observe, start practicing patience. Wildlife photography often takes time, so don't get discouraged if it takes a while for birds to come by. Waiting and watching will pay off. And when you learn that it takes some time for, let's say, the kingfisher to come by and perch in front of you, the waiting will be much easier when you photograph, as you just know that it can happen every moment, and you just have to be patient.